Okay, now it's working. Sorry, this is the first time I'm using my new laptop to do a live stream. And there we go. Okay, and it is working. I verified it's working. Hello. Also, the YouTube live chat is on here, so please be nice. I've had a lot of problems with this in the past. I'm going to leave it there because I don't want to spend the time figuring out how to get it to be taken off. But anyway, yeah, we just finished our live stream introducing Remix, and yeah, it honestly, frankly, I didn't feel super great about the launch, to be honest. I'm excited, of course, but I feel like we could have done a lot better. And the biggest thing is we should have just released everything today and done the live stream tomorrow. Then we wouldn't have been stressed. We should have switched over or launched the website hosted somewhere, and then DNS switched over. But as it was, we tried to deploy and we just had a bunch of deployment problems, nothing to do with Remix. And so, yeah, such a pain. And then like we kept thinking, oh, it's going to be good. It's like, we're going to be good. So I kept on stringing people along, like it's going to launch soon. And we kept having problems, and I should have come up forefront and said, sorry, we're having some deployment problems, but instead I just sent you a bunch of dad jokes. So sorry about not communicating that further, but I am super excited about this, and I'm not going to let a little bit of disappointment in how the launch went to mess up the way I feel about Remix and this launch. So let me really quickly just share this with folks, share this URL with people. Live streaming about Remix. And get this, I've got the new M1 Max and everything, and it's great, but I can hear the fans. I got the fans to turn on the M1 Max, so there's that. Here, let me also send a message here really quick. Okay, so hi everybody. My name is Kent, and I work on the Remix team. I am the co-founder and over the developer experience for Remix. And so if you have a bad developer experience, it's my fault, but don't be too harsh. I just joined a week ago. So let me share my screen. Let me move the YouTube thing away. And here, share screen with the green screen. There it is. Woo! I'm in the corner. So, this website, I did not build this. Oh, I just realized. Oh, man. I messed up. Yeah, I forgot to change my resolution of my screen before I started OBS. And now we're kind of toast. So 1 second while I figure out a good way to make this not terrible. Yikes. Dang it! I'm ruining everything. I've ruined it. Okay. Something like that. That's still too big. Okay, that's closer. Almost. So we're all learning here. I haven't done OBS in a while, so we're gonna just do that, and we'll be good. Okay. So yeah, I did not build this site. The Remix team did. I think Ryan did most of it. And Ryan did the homepage, and my goodness, he did an amazing job. And so I just want to take you through the homepage and talk about why why I think some of these things really matter a lot. And so, yeah. Then the biggest focus for Remix is the user experience. That's what we're always thinking about. And only most frameworks that I've noticed, they're constantly talking about how they're really fast, or what that's pretty much the main focus is how do we get our code to the browser as fast as possible so that we can show the user something, and how do we maybe reduce the amount of code that we're sending, and they're just always thinking about how fast they can make it, and that's great, and it's a worthy goal. It's something we should be doing. But that said, the speed of a site is only one aspect of the user experience. And so we're trying to be fast and also take care of these other parts of the user experience that people don't typically think too much about. So yeah, we're trying to help you build better websites and improve the user experience while we're doing that. So, yeah, a couple people who've been using it. I was going to be on this list until I got hired, and then they're like, well, it doesn't make sense for you to be on this list now. Because I definitely have tweeted a lot about Remix, just so enthusiastic about it. After building my website, it's just awesome. So, like, probably the number one reason why people have been doing static sites, or at least the reason I've been doing it, is because the deployment has just been so easy. And we saw a little bit of evidence of the challenge of deployment today with the deployment of this site. But it's worth the extra effort, and it's way better now than it was years ago when I was super excited about static site generation. And so, yeah, we have some really, really awesome platforms that are upcoming or here. Like my website is also hosted on Fly, just like the Remix site, and it is fast. So like we just need to work on the Remix site a little bit, but I mean, it's fine. It's great. But there are optimizations that I'm excited to make about this. But like we can make really, really fast user experiences and do server rendering. So a lot of the reason that people went with static site as well, it's so fast. It's just on the CDN. Deploying it is just as simple as copying some files over. Once the build is run, you know that like you don't have a server to manage, and it's not going to crash. All of those arguments I kind of fell for and I kind of went with, but lots of those things fall apart really quickly. Like for one, yeah, sure, you don't have a server to manage for your static stuff, but for any like real world website that I'm familiar with, you have some sort of data that's like real time or at least close to real time. Maybe there's user specific data. So you do have some servers, and you're probably writing like serverless functions and stuff to manage those. And building a Remix site can be as easy as those things. And you don't have to jump into the constraints of static sites. And so, yeah, you can build really awesome user experiences when you're using server-side rendering. And so that's what we kind of talk about here. So one thing is, and this is the Remixes cheat code. So for most websites, you have various levels of navigation. So here we have our root. This is the root route. Everything is inside of here. This is where you render your HTML element. And then under that, you have nested routes, and each one of these nested routes hold a special part of the URL. And if you look at any of your websites, you're probably going to have some sort of structure like this. Twitter has its settings page, and then GitHub has its settings, and then tokens, and then new. Like this is the way that we structure everything, and the URL is represented in the UI. And so there's potential here to make things work a little bit better, and nested routing is the solution for that. Yeah, and also like here it says there also a semantic boundary of data loading and code splitting, and it just makes total sense. So each one of these pieces, the root, sales, invoices, and invoice ID can be its own route and can be responsible for loading its own data. And that comes with a lot of really awesome optimizations that Remix can make for you. So yeah, eliminate nearly every loading state through the use of optimistic UI, and that's actually well documented. The tutorial that I'm going to walk you through tomorrow is also it also uses optimistic UI. It demonstrates how you do that. So yeah, loading states. I mean, for my site, I have this record your call, and when you record, and it's like, hello world and whatever, like that's going to take some time to upload. So you can't always remove all loading states, but I could probably put a pending or a optimistic UI in place to just render what they're going to see next. And like I said, in the tutorial, I show you how to do that. It's actually really easy. I've implemented optimistic UI in like, I did it in Angular, and React with React Query made it really easy. I did it before React Query as well. But then Remix just blows me away how straightforward it is to do this with Remix. It's not just like, wow, that works and that's easy, but I also really understand it, and I can see how like it's less prone for error than anything else I've used. So yeah, like I probably could do optimistic UI here, and even on when I respond to a call, that it takes even longer because I have to upload it and then I scrunch all the audio files together and do stuff and upload it to Transistors API and stuff. And so that can take like a minute or two. But even then, I could probably do an optimistic UI thing. And honestly, I should probably not do that on the request, but actually put it in some sort of queuing thing. So yeah, you can pretty much eliminate every loading state in your app because of nested routes. It's phenomenal. It's so awesome. So yeah, the thing that we've been chasing for a really long time as developers, especially UI developers, is we want to co-locate stuff as much as possible. We've got our component, we've got the data that we need for the component, and if we put them far away from each other, then we're constantly having to update this when we update this, and it's a real pain to have to keep going back and forth between these. And so we want to co-locate them so that when I update this, I have to update that, and it's very clear what's going on. We can have it type safe, and all that is really nice. But when we do that, or the way that we do that as UI engineers is we just stick the requirements in the component, and we say when this component mounts, and I want to go get this stuff, and that leads to request waterfalls and slower loads and jank. And so Remix, because you put your requirements, it's still co-located, but it's in a loader which runs on the server, then Remix can make sure to call all of those things before it even renders your component, and it can do all of this in parallel. So yeah, that's awesome. So this is the experience, basically. The thing that static site generation always claimed, and what I would always tell people when I'd say, no, SSG is the best, is I'd say, well, it's better to have a loading spinner than to have nothing. And yes, that's true. It's most of the time, you're going to have an easier time getting a static file delivered to the user's browser faster than than an HTML document that was generated on the server. It's not always the case. Cloudflare Workers is actually really impressive. You can get those very fast, but most of the time, and it's easier to just get a CDN to deliver a spinner to the browser. But that's not a great experience, especially when you have this waterfall effect where, okay, so we're going to go get the root. And now by this time, we've actually finished doing all of this work on the server, and we sent all that HTML. We can do this. It can happen. And so now the HTML is loaded, and the JavaScript is still loading. Like, we're loading JavaScript for both of these. And so it's not exactly interactive, but I'll talk about it right now. The cool thing with Remix is that while we're still waiting for this spinner for this JavaScript to load to finally start making requests for data and stuff, we've already loaded the HTML document, which contains links, and it contains forms, and all of these things work without JavaScript on the page. So while we're waiting for our JavaScript to even load in the first place, we've already finished loading the HTML, which the user can use right now. And so yes, you may be able to see a spinner earlier, that maybe, but like, I can actually use it a lot sooner. I think this is the better trade-off. Better for our users. And then also, as things keep loading in, unless you like set the height of things perfectly and you just happen to know what everything is going to be sized to, you're going to have this janky experience where things are bouncing around. Like, go to almost any site and this is what you see, is things bouncing around all over the place. Like, well, I'm not going to show you some of like, it's mostly those sites that you log in, like the government sites or my power utility, the utility company, they have spinners just all over the place, and things bouncing around because, I mean, that's the easier way to do it, right? Because you want to have your component and your data co-located. Well, you can have that with Remix, and you can give the user an awesome experience. And that's one of the things that I love about Remix. So yes, say goodbye to Spinageddon. I just love this. Ryan, you're a genius. Okay, so the next thing is nested routes also allow Remix to make our app as fast as instant. So we can prefetch everything. So even though we have to go to the server to get all of our data, as the user is using our app, we can kind of guess what the user is trying to do. So like, as the mouse comes into here, Remix can start fetching not only the JavaScript assets, but also the JSON and the CSS, even images, everything that the user is going to need, and that can be loaded before the user even finishes their click. And so there is no loading state. It feels like we already had that loaded because we did. And what's really cool about this is what I've done in the past is I will do this, but I will do it with an in-memory cache. So I'll say, oh, they hovered over. Like I literally taught this actually in, let's see, I think it was my performance workshop where we preloaded you may remember this in Epic React. In the performance workshop where we do lazy loading, I show you how when the user clicks on the checkbox, we're going to load this big globe or whatever. So we added the ability to mouse over on the checkbox and we start preloading the globe. So this is just JavaScript that we're preloading because that globe was just like enormous. And so I had to do that in JavaScript. So it was an in-memory thing. And what's really cool about this is we're loading this stuff into the cache. And so there are a couple of really awesome things about this. For one, let's say that the user decides, instead of clicking on this, I'm going to hit Command click. And so that is going to open into a new tab. My JavaScript JavaScript-based cache for all that data and all those assets and everything, it's gone. It's not useful at all. But because Remix is using the built-in browser cache, that's already there. And so that new tab is going to load really fast. So yeah. You don't need loading states. Zero jank. And yeah, they're just prefetch link tags. It's really actually not that complicated and it's really awesome. And it's the reason why my site can be really fast, even though like when you go to the workshops page, I'm trying to go find out, okay, do you have tickets? This is server rendered. That came from the server. Well, it's not server rendered. This is server rendered. I refreshed. So that's server rendered. But like data request is in real time. If you open up your logs and you hover over one of these things, then you're going to see their request to go get this stuff. In fact, yeah, here on the courses, you may think this is all static, but all of these testimonials are coming, and they're actually randomized as well. Like if you refresh every time, this is going to be in a random order every time. And that all right now it's server rendered, but like as you're navigating around, it's going to preload all of that stuff for you so that it just feels super fast. And that's all Remix. It's amazing. Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about data loading. So many of our problems seem to revolve around data loading and managing that data. React Query exists for solving this problem. In Remix, you don't have this problem. It's amazing. You can have an entire app that doesn't use state at all, and just have all the state be on the server, and you're communicating, through your loaders. Now, of course, there's normally going to be some UI state, like you've got this, an accordion or something. You're not going to save that in the server. But like all of the data stuff that you persist, that's all managed by Remix. And you don't ever think about the cache either. It's really, really cool. So so this is how you do data mutations in Remix. You have a form, and then you have inputs, and that's it. And then you have your action that runs on the server side. It gets that form data and it does its thing with that data. It's so awesome. And this request form data, this is a platform API. And so we often say that the better you get at Remix, the better you get at the web. And that's totally the case. So I'm really, I love that a lot. And to take this a step further, Ryan spent like 3 months. I remember talking with him on occasion. He was showing me things, asking me questions about things, and we were bike shedding stuff. Showed me for 3 months what to do about when a user submits the same form twice, or when they submit this one and that request is going, and then they submit this one, and Remix just does the right thing for you automatically. So you don't have race condition problems at all. So here we're going to post to a new, and now that new one is done. So we're going to go get the invoices. We're going to, to get the invoice list, and we're going to get the specific invoice detail for the one that we just created. But then before those come back, we posted another one. We were just really fast, so we made another one. So those are automatically canceled for us. We don't think about it, and then we go and get the new invoice. It's really awesome. And you can get rid of or you can add the pending UI really easily with this use transition, and it's all managed for you, and then they just give you what you need so that you can render the pending state that you want. Or even better, to do just a pending UI and say, oh, is there a submission? Then I'm not going to show, creating invoice. Instead, I will just render the invoice as if it was already created. And if that fails, like that's always the thing you think about. Oh, well, if I do optimistic UI, then I need to think about, well, what if it fails? Now I got to, reset my cache or whatever. You don't need to do that. All you do is you say, if there's a submission, then render the invoice. Otherwise, render the form. And so while the submission is happening, there's a submission. If it fails for any reason, then there's not a submission, and now you're rendering the form again. It's so simple. Like, that's it. I'm not joking. This is all. That's all there is. I think it's awesome. Here, I guess since I'm in the corner, I should be like, that's all there is. Wow. It's amazing. It really is. Oh, no. Errors. So, yeah. In Remix, so normally when your website hits an error, like something crashes, you get like a big white screen, or maybe the developer thought about this ahead of time, and so they have some sort of error screen, and that's great. But we can make it better. And so with nested routing, we can make our errors contextual. And Remix handles errors really nicely. So with error boundaries, we can keep the happy path happy. So each route module can export an error boundary next to the default component route. So here's our happy path. We leave that as it is. We don't think about errors. We maybe think about pending states if we've got a form in there. But we don't think about pending states for the data coming in, just the data going out. So when I click submit, I want to show some pending state, or optimistic UI is even better. So I'm not thinking about errors at all. Oh, and then of course there's validation too. That's a separate topic. So the user enters incorrect stuff. Yeah, you're going to manage that inside of your component as well, which is the right place for it, because you're probably going to want to leave the form there and just show error messages anyway. So unexpected errors, that's what error boundaries are for. You just render whatever you want to here, and if there is an unexpected error either in the component or in the loader or in the action, any of those places, Remix will render your error boundary in its place. And this also works on the server, which that is not how error boundaries work in React. In React, if you're using an error boundary and you're rendering on the server, React just throws up and it's like, I can't even render the error boundary. I'm sorry. And so you get like this 500 error, and it's awful. So Remix makes error boundaries work on the server. And isn't that cool? That's kind of fun. So, if there is an error, whether client or server, the user sees the entire page, except for like that one area where that busted. That's going to have the error boundary rendered instead. So the rest of the app still works. If I'm like, oh, this invoice is broken, like some developer didn't, did something wrong or whatever, then that's fine. They can look at these other invoices. And if they're all broken, then yeah, that's too bad. They can go over to customers and deposit. Like there's still things that they can do. You don't, and that's what's really cool about this is you look at this code right here, you don't have to worry about the rest of the app. When you're working in this nested route, you're in this nested route, and that nested route is the part that's going to be exploded. Everything else is going to be just fine. That is awesome. It is awesome. And if the developer didn't think about putting an error boundary in that nested route, then we'll just look for the closest parent. The closest parent that has an error boundary, it will render that. So you probably should put error boundaries in your routes, but if you don't, then at least like they can still access this stuff. So we do the right thing. So yeah, there's so much stuff. Like we were talking about in the launch live stream. There's way like I've touched on maybe 20% of what Remix does, even in this, but my goodness, it's awesome. So I'm happy to hang out. Like I've been up since like forever, getting this launch ready. I basically didn't sleep on Saturday night. I'm really tired, but I just really wanted to like, this is so awesome. And I really want you people to try Remix out. Go play, work on Remix right now. Like go find the docs, go to the quick start. If you only have a little bit of time, this one is from Ryan. This one should probably only take you, I don't know, maybe a half hour, maybe an hour. The Jokes app is going to take quite a bit longer. There's a lot more to this. Holy shnikes. There's like, look at that. It's awesome. There's so much stuff in here. And I really want you to, Like, trust me, give me your time and I will give you a good one. Because this is great. So anyway, feel free to ask me questions. This is my first live stream as a remixer officially. I plan on doing way more of these. I noted earlier that my MacBook fan was on, but I think it's still on, but I can barely hear it. I don't think I can. Yeah, it's like barely on. So we can do this. Like it's going to work again. Hooray. I'm so excited that I can finally live stream again. So look forward to a lot more live streams from me. Yeah, Matthew is asking if we can do a speed run. That's sort of what tomorrow is going to be like. So if you go to, let's see, this one probably? Yeah, here it is. So if you go to this video, I will post it in here. Then you can watch this. I'm going to do this tomorrow, and it's going to be great. And that'll be kind of your speed run. Satish, sorry if it's one of those. Yeah, wondering about testing. So I'm a little ashamed of this, but this tutorial doesn't talk about testing at all. And that's just because I had to cut off something, and testing Remix is actually kind of boring, honestly. So let me show you. I don't actually have a good example for you, but here, if we go to mutations as an example, and then we look at this code right here. So here's our route, here's our action, here's how you test this. You put a file in your test directory, you import this module, and you import this action. So if that's what you want to test, you import that. And then you construct a request with literally new request. New request. And you provided all the options that you want it to. For us, we're going to need form data. So you create a form data object and you pass that along. And then you call the function. And then it's going to return a redirect, or in this case, it throws an error. Further down, we do, we return these values. We also return that form error. So yeah, you verify what it returned or what it resolved to, because it's an async function. So you verify what it resolved to, and you assert on that, and that's it. Like it couldn't be more simple. Here it's a redirect. This is a response, and so you can assert on the response object. I mean, I'm sorry, but like that is easy. Relative, everything's relative. Not everybody finds everything to be easy. I understand that, but relative to everything else that I've ever done, Remix, it makes this sort of testing really easy. You can import the component. Now, I haven't actually done this before, so I'm not sure exactly whether we have the right abstractions in place for the use action data. I know that Sergio has done a fair bit of testing of Remix components and stuff, so he might know a little bit more. You'll find him in the Discord. But if we don't have the right abstractions for this, we will soon, because I'm in charge of this. And so we'll make sure that we get those abstractions. But you'll basically have a render function that you can just call, and it will have the ability for you to provide action data and see what your component does when it has action data. Like it couldn't be simpler. It really couldn't. I just love it. Yeah, it's awesome. And loaders are just as easy as actions. So anyway, that's the testing thing. It's awesome. Okay, let me see if there are other questions here. Oh my goodness, wow, there are lots of chat. And I may try to make the YouTube live chat work, but we got some really racist stuff last time I did YouTube live chat, so I just pretty much never turn it on. And I prefer Discord, but I was kind of like, this was throwing it together last minute, and I haven't done OBS in a long time, so I decided to try this. So anyway, is there an official Remix community on Discord yet? Yes, there is. Let me send you that. So feel free to join the Discord. Please do. It's awesome. It's phenomenal. I agree. It's awesome. Just got into Web3. Excited to try this out for future projects. I don't know anything about Web3, but I'm glad you're excited about it. Let's see. or Redux, for example. So is Remix not necessary to use React Router? So Remix actually has React Router as a dependency. React Router is used under the hood, and in fact, link. Here we go. Yeah, so this, oh no, that's the wrong kind of link. Yeah, here, this link. We use the React Router link within Remix. Here we go. Nope, wrong one. There we go. Link. That is not just a re-export. Remix actually wraps this and does a little bit more to it. But eventually what is in Remix will probably make it into React Router. The outlet right here, which actually should be included on this import. My bad. I'll fix that later. That outlet is also, I think that one is just re-exported. So yeah, we're using React Router under the hood, but you don't have to think about it. Just import everything from Remix. Wondering about Redux. Yeah, I have no idea when anybody would want to use Redux with Remix. Yeah, and Redux itself has very few solid use cases that I can think of. Yeah, I know a lot of people will take issue with that, but I don't feel like very many applications really need Redux. But even fewer applications will need it if they're built with Remix. If that QR code is not Rickroll, I'd be disappointed. I think it just goes to the docs, but thank you for giving me that idea. I totally am going to change that to a Rickroll. That was great. And yes, I am eventually going to make the Canonical code actually do something. I was also disappointed when I saw it didn't do anything. Oh, thanks, Michal, for answering these questions. Yeah, Ryan Florence made the landing page, and he's amazing. Sorry, just scrolling through these questions. How does Remix compare to something? Here, I'll just switch. Here we go, because I'm not showing you anything anyway. Remix is taking advantage of React server rendering to have JSX rendered on the server before it's sent to the client. So yeah, how does it compare to something like C# or MVC, whatever? Yeah, so I don't really have great experience with server rendering in other languages. The one job that I had where we were doing server rendering with Java, where I was participating in that, I hated it so much. It was not great. And so, yeah, I can't really tell you how well it compares, but I can say that you probably can't do this in your with your C# MVC with JavaScript sprinkled on top. Yeah, there's really no comparison. However, you can totally make API calls to your C# backend or whatever. So this is one of the really nice things about Remix is that like we all got excited about GraphQL because we could say, oh, sweet, so now I don't have to do data overfetching. That'll be awesome. And actually, I talk about that in the tutorial. The problem is that either you have to build your own server that does GraphQL and interacts with like your backend APIs, or you got to convince your backend engineers to implement the APIs in GraphQL. That's like a significant ask, just so that you can avoid data overfetching. And so with the loader, if I don't want to have like the name in here anymore, I literally just remove the name property and I'm no longer getting the name. Or I can filter things out or whatever I want. So I can make a network request for a ton of data, filter it out, and send just the data that's necessary to the user. And it's all right here in this one thing. So yeah, if you've got a C# backend, that's great. Make an API call right in here and it'll be faster for your users. It's awesome. Blown away by Remix? Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, we talked about testing. Satish, thank you for that question. What if we need more data from two APIs? Yeah, or data we don't map to our to a URL. So I'm not sure about that second half of your question there, but yeah, if you have multiple APIs, you can totally make multiple API requests. And you can make as many API requests as you want. Like this runs on the server, you can do anything that you do on a server. Show how scroll restoration works. Oh man. Yeah, I can show you where that code is. We'll go to scroll restoration. Boom. This is it. it's 125 lines, including a script tag that inlines to make things awesome, and it works really, really well. Yeah, on my app page, it doesn't work super great because this is UI state, and when you refresh, you lose that UI state. And so if I have this expanded and then I refresh, it's now going to be closed, and I'm going to be down at that level of the page. Not sure what I can do about that. I could persist like the UI state in local storage or something maybe. But yeah, so like if you've got some UI state that is controlling where your scroll position is, yeah, that's not going to work great. But find me an app where it does manage that well, because that is not a trivial problem. But like if we go to, here, let's go to the remix package here. We come down here, I'm at just above use form action, refresh, boom, I'm right there. I didn't even move at all. There was no flash of any kind. Use submit, boom, I'm right there. It's awesome. Like, and I go to conventions and I go back, boom, I'm right where I was. If I go off, even off domain, so let's go down, or let's see. Here, actually, I can just go to google.com. I'm at special files. I go back, and there I am, right at special files. Find me a spa that'll do that for you. You won't. Yeah. And there I am. You submit again. Yeah. Like, wowza, my friends. Wowza. It's awesome. Okay, cool. Oh my gosh. I just realized that I wasn't sharing my screen. I should never do that. Oh. It was awesome. Here, I'm going to do that again. Check this out. Boom, 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 boom. And then I go off domain. I come back, and there I am right where I left. Yeah. Off domain, I'm back right where I was. Yeah, you're not going to find a framework that does that. This is awesome. Managing scrolling. When it's client transitions. Now, if it's full page refreshes on that site, yeah, scroll will work great because the browser is doing that. But if you have client-side transitions, which is what you want for your like really nice user experience, then yeah, you're not going to have as good a scrolling control that you have with Remix. It's awesome. And yeah, so just look up scroll restoration, and you'll get an idea of how this works. It's, you know, it's 125 lines. It's amazing. Ryan and I bike shedded on this a lot. He helped me mostly, and then I broke his code, and I showed him how it was broken, and we talked it through, and we both came up with ideas, and then he fixed it, and it's awesome. The real fun part of all this is right here. So it's awesome. So the way that scroll restoration works is you have manual and you have auto. And auto is the default, and that's like the way that the web works. You have full page refreshes, and so like the browser will just say, oh, you were on that page, and so I know where to put you. But when you're doing client-side transitions, the browser isn't gonna like put you anywhere. So if you didn't do anything with scroll, then you would like scroll down, you'd click on a link, and then you'd still be in that scrolled position, and the whole page would change. And so now you're at like the bottom of the page or something. It's not a good experience. And so you change it to auto, or sorry, to manual, so that you can manage the scroll position. And so the browser isn't always just sticking you up to the top, and you can go where you want to go. The problem with this is when you go off domain and come back, then the browser it's like, oh, you're going to manage this for me, so I won't put you where you're supposed to be. So what we do is after JavaScript is taken over, we set it to manual. And before unload, so as the user's leaving, we set it to auto, so that when the user comes back, the browser's like, oh yeah, I remember where you were because you were set to auto, and so now I'll put you where you were. And then from there on, we take it over with manual. It's great. It's awesome. Yeah, good stuff. It's really good. Okay. I can rely on next stuff and combine with Remix. The two are basically, they solve the same problem. So I don't think anybody would use both together unless they were migrating from one to the other. And in that case, you would use like some Nginx thing to point different URLs to the different apps or whatever until you finish the migration to Remix. Or to Next, like, I don't know. Let me know if you decide you tried Remix and you're migrating to Next. Yeah, anyway, that is that. Okay, scroll just got really messed up here on YouTube. More details on what you're saying. The more you, yeah. Okay, so let's talk about this. So in my tutorial, we talk a lot about the HTTP API. And so I say, hey, go learn about this because it'll help you use Remix better. Let me find like a specific one. Let me think. Yeah, I actually removed cache headers. Okay, so basically, here we'll go down to, yeah, we'll go to authentication actually. That one would be good. Build the login form, come down here to login. And yeah, right here for one, when you're processing a form, well, actually here, this is a regular form and its method is post. That's how the web works. And so by building things this way, you understand better how the web works. You're not saying prevent default. You're not saying, hey, browser, don't do what you do. You're saying, hey, browser, do what you do. And so you learn what the browser does. And so you're getting better at the web platform in that way. And then here on the server side, you're saying, hey, requests can have form data. And so I'm going to go get that form data. And now I'm interacting with this form data object, which is a web platform API. This request is also a web platform API. And then here, if we get down to session server, here we're creating this cookie session storage, and we're where is that? Yeah, right here. So we're saying, hey, I want to redirect to wherever they wanted me to redirect them to, and I'm going to set these headers. So this redirect is actually just a utility for creating a response, and you can set headers at that time. And this is the way that the web works. And so here you can see, oh, my response set the cookie. I can see the cookies in my application. And now my requests are sending the cookie along. So we're not like re-implementing stuff in the browser or in JavaScript, where like with JOTs, what I always would do and teach is I'd say, okay, so you hit this service, they'll give you a JOT, you'll put that in local storage, and then you'll attach that to every request that you make. And we're basically re-implementing what the browser does. And so the better that you get at Remix, the better you get at the web platform for that reason, because you end up using a lot of the web platform APIs, request, response, headers, meta, yeah, just so much stuff. So that's what I mean by that. What does Remix use on the server by default? It seems like the architecture abstracts this. Yes, exactly. So there is no default. The Remix server, when you're setting up your app, it will that is based on Express, which is based on Node. You can do Express by itself, which is what my website does. You can just use Node directly, or you can step completely outside of Node, and you can use Cloudflare Workers. And none of your code really needs to change. So as long as like you're not using APIs that aren't supported on Cloudflare Workers, you can totally use Cloudflare Workers, which does not have all of the stuff that Node has. It's a completely different environment. Eventually, we'll have service worker support, so you can do it all in the browser if you wanted to. Like even your loader and action and all of that stuff. Oh, this is not a module. Yeah, route module. You know what a loader and action looks like. I've showed you a bunch of them. But that stuff is also going to run on in the service worker, and so you could do like an app that's completely offline and all of that. None of your code needs to change for that. So yeah, you can swap things out. It's not really meant for being able to swap things out. It's just meant for we want to be able to deploy everywhere, and you don't have to learn a completely different thing based on where you're deploying. It's all pretty much the same for the most part. There are some things that are supported in Node that aren't supported in other environments, but that's just the limitations of those environments. Cool. How about the Remix jobs? I'm not sure what you mean by that, but I love working here. Congratulations, Satish. Good for you on new position in big tech. That's awesome. Try to use Remix. I think you'll love it. Michelle, you're still awake? What time is it in where you're at? It's probably super late. Thank you for your commitment. Currently, we can test pages as remix context. We can't test remix context isn't exported. That sounds correct to me. Yeah, but that will be resolved soon. If there's not already an issue open about it, there will be. I don't expect that to be a problem. Don't worry, I'm working here. So we'll solve that one. How far would you consider it to be production ready? So, I mean, I'm using it in production. I make money on this site through my workshops and stuff. So, like, this is my business. And so, yeah, I think it's production ready. I shipped this months ago. Now, there are some things that are lacking, like being able to test a component, I guess, if that's what you want to do. I actually really like using Cypress for remix tests. I think it is a really nice match. You get a lot of coverage that way. Yeah, so that is an idea. But yeah, very soon we'll have testing, unit testing of your components. And if you want to, like, you can always abstract away the complex parts that you want to test and test those in isolation, and then just pass things as props. Dependency injection. So, yeah, QR code goes to error boundary docs. That sounds right. Hi, Adam. Okay. Should we stay on KCD Discord or read Remix Discord? Both. Stay on both of them. If you want to talk about Remix, probably on the Remix Discord is the best place for that. But I will keep the Remix channel in my Discord because we've become friends there and stuff, and so it's kind of fun to just chat with your friends. But yeah, the KCD Discord will continue to exist for as long as I do, I suppose. So yeah, stay on both. They're fun. I wouldn't recommend keeping up with all of the messages that are going on because it's too much. Okay. I mean, if you want to, but yeah, I'm not going to probably. There's just way too much. What do you think Remix will be in the future? Do you think Remix will be adopted by companies? Oh yeah, for sure. Honestly, I foresee a future where Remix is bigger than Next, and that's saying something. Next is enormous, but I really feel like Remix has some really awesome things that people really need that they have a hard time getting out of Next. Now, that's not to say that we're coming after the Next user base or anything like that. No, but I feel like there is here, let's look at this. So Next users, I think it's just Next is the package name. Come on, site. There we go. So if we look at 5 years time, and let's look at something to compare it to, just so we get a frame of reference. So there's Gatsby down there. And then of course there's Remix, which will not have any, it'll be like flatline on the bottom here. Think about this. Next users and Gatsby users are not using React Router, right? Let's just look at React Router DOM, not the native stuff, but just React Router DOM. React Router DOM is the green. So there's a lot of potential there. We're after this section of people right here. We're not going for the people who are happy with Next. If you're happy with Next, that's awesome. But there's clearly a huge number of people who are who have not yet been convinced to switch over to Next, and for whatever those reasons are, I don't know what they are, or I have some ideas of what they could be, but this market is big enough for the both of us, and so we are not like we're gonna come get you Next people. Like we're friends with them. We deploy to Vercel. We're happy with that. We're after these people who are building their applications with like Create React App and using React Router DOM, and we feel like we can give them a better experience. And so kind of the goal here is to help them get themselves up to React Router v6, and then from there you just move files around a little bit, install Remix, and then you've got a Remix app running. And then the next biggest challenge from there will be to get your infrastructure so you can actually have a server rendered app, because most of these people, maybe some of them are hand rolling their own SSR, but I bet most of these people are using something like Create React App. Here, let's see what Create React App is on here. Oh, that's actually a surprise. I expected create React. Oh, no. React scripts is what we want. Yeah, create React app is just when you're creating the app. So yeah, React scripts is the red. So it's even bigger than Next. And so, yeah, those are the people that we're really targeting. And so for that reason, I feel like Remix can be huge because the migration path to Remix for all of those people is just like, it's so much easier because you upgrade yourself to v6 of React Router, move some files around, you install Remix, and now you just have to set up a server, which you'd have to do with anything else anyway. Yeah, and that's all I'm going to say about that. So I see the future of Remix to be enormous. It'll be adopted by a lot of companies. A lot fewer worries about cores. Yep, that's in reference to static sites, I think, probably. Okay, never wanted to learn GraphQL. Well, yeah, you can learn GraphQL. You don't have to. Like, you get the choice. And that's the cool thing about the loaders. Like, you can do anything you want to in there. And you don't have to send this giant GraphQL client. Look at this. Bundle phobia. If you look at GraphQL, and then here we are, GraphQL, 163 kilobytes minified. That is not small. So React DOM is often touted as like, wow, this thing's so big. GraphQL is bigger than React DOM. It is not small. And so what people do, what I did when I was working at PayPal is I saw that and I'm like, no, thank you. And I found request GraphQL. Is it GraphQL request? I can't remember. Yep, here it is. And it's much smaller. Still, like 20 kilobytes is not small, but I mean, it's pretty good. It's okay. But the problem here is that you don't have GraphQL. So like there are a lot of things that GraphQL does for you. It's not like those kilobytes are just nothing. It does a lot. It solves a real problem. It's just unfortunate that you have to send all of that code to the user to solve that problem. Well, with Remix, you don't have the problem because you have a loader. Let's see, oh my goodness, loader. Yeah, here's our loader, boom. And you can use GraphQL client in there. That's fine. That's sitting on your server, not doing anybody any harm. And you can make GraphQL requests and be happy with that. It can all be typed, all this wonderful stuff. If that's the way that you want to roll, that's great. And your users won't be ever the wiser at all. That is cool. I like that a lot. So yeah, if you never want to learn GraphQL, that's fine. You don't have to. You can get all like the primary benefits of GraphQL without actually using GraphQL when you're using Remix. And I think that's great. Can loaders exist outside of form page purposes, making a live dynamic search when the user types? Yes. Check this out. We have resource routes. And so this resource route, I made a RSS feed reader. And so what this is basically just a loader function that you export, and you don't export a component. So if you don't export a component, then it turns into a resource route, and that can be an action, or it can be a loader, or it can be both. The action handles everything that's not a get. The loader handles gets, and so yeah, you can totally do that. You could build an entire API out of this. Like you could say, hey, I've got Express, but Remix looks pretty cool. I'll just use Remix instead. And yeah, you could do that. Like actually that would work. This feature was just implemented like 2 weeks ago. And so I haven't had a chance to use it yet on my site, but it is awesome. Like you're in control of the response, right? So I can set the content type. When I was working on this demo, I thought maybe we could generate a PDF. And so I was looking into that and I thought, they had to learn a lot of extra stuff to do that. Let's just do RSS. And so that's what we're doing. And it works really well. It's awesome. So you can also serve up dynamic CSS if you wanted to, or dynamic JavaScript, or like just anything you could imagine. Like polyfill.io could be built on Remix using a resource route. Yeah, you have total control over the response. It's really, really great. Great question. Let's see. So, okay. So Danny is clarifying previous question about C# and MVC. Comparison to functionality. So how Remix works versus something like C# and MVC, Java, JSPs, and versus SPAs sends a whole app to the client. Well, so I talked about this a little bit earlier, but if you go to the site right here, where we compare this experience, the jank on the left with all the spinners, to the finished app on the right. You want the one on the right. If you missed that, I went through this big explanation. Just scrub back toward the beginning of the video and you'll find that. Yeah, so sorry, this is where everybody's like, hey, Kent, you forgot to show your screen when you were trying to show us the scroll position. My bad. I don't think I'll ever do that again. We'll just leave the screen even if I'm not doing anything. Okay. Are any Remix internals that can be reused for other projects? It seems that Ken is already tired for today. Oh man, I was trying to be all enthusiastic. But yeah, I think I mentioned this earlier. I didn't sleep Saturday night at all. I went to bed at 6, woke up at like 10. So I slept like in the morning with my kids like jumping on me. And then I went to bed last night at 8 and woke up at 12:30. And when I woke up, I looked at the clock and I made some calculations in my head and I'm like, oh, I got 7.5 hours of sleep. I'm ready to go. I'm not going to be able to fall asleep anyway. And then it was like 3 hours later that I realized, wait a second, 8 to 12:30 is like 4.5 hours of sleep. So yes, I am tired. Yeah, I'm exhausted. Yeah, but I'm happy to be here and I am so excited that Remix is finally out. My goodness. Wow. My eyes are telling you I'm awake. I'm here for you. I'm here to answer your questions. Okay. Ie11 supported. Actually, that's a great question. So if you look at script type module, if you look at the JavaScript that we're loading, we are using type module. This means that Ie11 will just ignore it because it doesn't understand type module. And so for that reason, no JavaScript will be loaded onto the page in Ie11. But remember, when I was talking about this app, even before any of the JavaScript is loaded, this app works. It totally works. In fact, there's nothing interactive on this UI. And so, yeah, Remix works in Ie11. There's no JavaScript. Everything will work. You may have to do a little bit of extra stuff if you have to take Ie11 into consideration, but goodness gracious, like, provided that you are using HTML and CSS that works on those platforms, you could run this in IE8 if you wanted to, because it just won't load any of the JavaScript, and your JavaScript works, or your HTML works, because the way that you construct things with Remix. So that's what I'm talking about. That is great. Okay. Okay, and the scroll just got messed up again. Now I gotta scroll and find. Okay. So Danny is saying, I'm just trying to build a good mental model of how Remix works versus something like Next. Oh, you're gonna start a Remix project tonight. Sweet. Enjoy. It's gonna be fun. Follow the tutorial. I would actually recommend before you, like do whatever you want, whatever gets you excited, whatever. But at some point, go through the tutorial. You can go through Ryan's Markdown one. That one's pretty quick. That'll give you a quick intro to loaders and actions and stuff. But definitely go through mine. It's a lot more comprehensive, and I spent a lot of time on it. So I want people to use it because like it is quite good. So yeah, but that's awesome. I'm excited to hear that you're going to use it. Is Remix basically server rendered components? Mateo, you are speaking my language. So when it was like Remix was announced, and then like a month or two later, React Server Components was announced. And I was like, why don't I feel excited about this? Like I should feel super like this is solving so many problems. And then I realized, oh my gosh, I don't have these problems as much anymore. I still have the problems. Like, don't get me wrong, React Server Components will totally solve some problems that even Remix has. A quick example. Let's say that you have like, we're rendering some date right here. And so we have moment.js or something to format the date, whatever it is. Or maybe we have a date picker or something. No, that's a bad example. Yeah, we're just rendering a date. Even with Remix, if you want to be able to hydrate this, which of course you do, then you need to ship moment to the browser. Even if you don't change it, you could get around that, of course. There are ways to get around that. But yeah, that's what you would have to do. for if you do change it. And so that is unfortunate, right? Like, because Moment's an enormous library. So even Remix will benefit from server components by being able to say, hey, this thing is using a library that's really heavy and it can run on the server. So let's just run it on the server. We'll just send the pieces that, that the client actually needs. So server components will be a little bit of a help, but by golly, you will not need them as much with Remix as you do with other things. So server components are cool. Remix plans on using them. I just remember when they were announced, I was like, wow, I don't have the problems, as many of the problems as server component solves. So I guess I'm not as excited about it. At least not as excited as I thought I would be. Okay. The way I see Remix, as far as the material I've seen, is that the integration between JS backend and frontend allow it to easily enhance it with a nice spa, which is nigh impossible elsewhere. Adam, I think you get it. It's basically, you know, that thing that Rich Harris, the Svelte creator, is talking about. He gave a talk recently called Transitional Apps. It was a really great talk. I'm not a big fan of the name, Transitional Apps. It makes it feel like things are transitory, like they're not done yet or something. Hold on a second. Oh. Okay. Shoot. Coming. My wife needs me. She needed me 10 minutes ago, and I just barely noticed her message. So I've got to run. Thanks, everybody, for this. This was fun. It was a great way to end my launch day, and I hope you all have a wonderful day and enjoy playing around with Remix. It's awesome. Bye!